Good morning, everyone. I'm Elad Nichols-Kaufman, and I'm the interim president of Shortridge's student government. And I'm here to welcome you to Shortridge's second annual club virtually. Although many things have been disrupted by COVID, many of our clubs are still meeting. So today you'll get to see videos and see posters from the wide range of clubs offered by Shortridge. And I hope you'll enjoy and maybe find something you're interested in.
Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Jellison and I run the Board Game Club. Board Game Club is now 100% virtual. While we can't play a lot of the board games we used to, we still have quite a few options to choose from available for free online. Right now we offer Catan, Chess, Checkers, Hanabi, Dominion, and now Among Us, as well as our biggest draw, Dungeons and Dragons. Anyone can join at any time. Board Game Club runs from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on Mondays. Contact me for the Teams link.
Yeah, no errors in the code right there from Brendan. Too much confused. They're going to try and use this Death Blossom. The 3K. Big Sox is the big daddy of this game. Madison take himself out just a little bit. He has no idea where J-Drops is going.
Shortridge, this is Mr. Speckman, and I'm here to tell you about the Butler Writers After School Creative Writing Club. First thing you need to know about Butler Writers Creative Writing Club is that it's open to anybody, literally anybody. You don't have to be a certain kind of student to participate. We want to be here to allow anyone to have a voice. We're looking for people who are creative-minded. These are, you might be a student who writes poetry on the side. Maybe you write raps and rhymes in a notebook. Maybe you write fan fiction. Maybe you've written a whole fantasy novel that you haven't shared with anybody because you're not sure who is interested in that kind of thing. We bring together Shortridge writers and Butler writers, people who love creative works, who share book recommendations, who bounce ideas off of each other, who can talk writer to writer about some of the challenges we face and how we take it to the next level. That's what Butler Writers is.
Hello, SHS scholars. We are the National Organization for Women chapter at Shortridge, known as SHS Now.
In Now, we focus on 6 core issues, which include reproductive rights and justice, economic justice, ending violence against women, racial justice, LGBTQIA+ rights, and constitutional equality.
We are very interested in to grow the diversity of our members. Everyone is welcome.
If you are interested in social justice, a supportive group, and or trying something new, please join us.
Welcome to a special news broadcast just for you. I'm Nevaeh Smith, a junior at Shortridge. I am a radio and television student and a part of the Video Visions Club at Shortridge.
Hi, I'm Alessandro Sosa, a junior and the editor of our Echo News magazine. If you take a class in the communications pathway, you will dive right into creating multimedia stories and projects for Shortridge and the surrounding community.
Right, Alex, and we've already been a part of creating and leading a Speak the Truth school-wide forum on teams, interviewing journalists about their role during the pandemic and the election. Radio and TV production and student media also have worked together to produce the World Changing 101 event.
We take our role very seriously when we cover what's happening in our school and community and give students a voice for their ideas and perspectives. We have our Echo News, the website, shortridgedailyecho.com, as well as our yearbook, the annual, which we are very proud of producing in the middle of a pandemic.
That's amazing, Alex. We also work with the PBS NewsHour student reporting labs on special video projects and the Devil's in the Details newscast. Now it's your turn. Take a moment and look at your news break assignment. Then record your report and upload it.
And who knows, this time next year it could be you on this side of the camera.
Remember, it all starts with a question.
You're on mute.
Okay. Hello, Shortridge. For those of you who don't know, my name is Bailey Strawhorn. I am a senior, and then today I'll be interviewing my dad for the nonprofit that he started organizing. So I don't know if you can see him or not. All right. So why don't you tell me a little, or tell Shortridge a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Bailey's dad. My name is Marcus Strawhorn. And starting out in high school, I wouldn't say I was a bad student, but I struggled with being a student. And where I thrived was outside of school. And one of the things that I thrived was with flying. I got my pilot's license when I was 16. I was flying airplanes solo when I was 15. After high school, I went to Ball State and got my degree in biology, and then moved to Indianapolis, and I currently work for Eli Lilly right now, and I work as a quality assurance consultant for insulin manufacturing. Back in 2011, I started a nonprofit called Flight1.
So what is Flight1 for those of them that do not know?
So Flight1 is a nonprofit that builds confidence in kids affected by serious diseases. So kids can be sick themselves, or they can have siblings or parents who are sick, and it really has an impact on how they get through life. And it's difficult to have these challenges and not have a sense of accomplishment. So that's what the program is really about, is using airplanes, using the ability to fly to reinstill confidence in kids and help to reestablish some of that confidence that they've lost. Right now, we have about 300 kids in the program, or we've served about 300 kids in different capacities over several different years that they've been participating.
Nice. So how has your education at State or through high school helped you get to where you are in your career, if that's at Lilly or with Flight1?
Yeah, so I don't know if you knew this, Bailey, but I wanted to be a vet. After high school, I liked animals, and I wanted to become a veterinarian. And so my major was biology, but I also needed the other aspects of business, psychology, and chemistry as well. And while I was in school, I worked at a veterinary office and realized it was a very boring job. It was the same thing every day, just giving the vaccine shots and giving out heartworm pills. And it was something I couldn't see myself doing for the rest of my life. But fortunately, with my degree, I was able to use that in other areas too. It's a very dynamic degree, so I could find something else with biology. What I didn't want was to just sit on a bench and look at petri dishes all day in a laboratory, and I thought that would be boring too. But that ended up being what I ended up doing right out of school, was just looking at petri dishes all day. But it turned out to be a great decision, and it led to my position where I am now. So something really enjoyable.
So how did your education help with Flight1 then?
Yeah, so I didn't know that I was going to start Flight1. It wasn't something I had been thinking about at all throughout my life, and it certainly wasn't something I was thinking of in college. And when I was in college, I wanted to be a scientist, and so my focus was entirely on what I needed to have to become successful with that. And so the least important thing to me was learning how to speak in front of people. And actually, I hated to do that. And so there was an entry-level freshman year speech class that was required by everyone. And I didn't take it until the last semester of my senior year because I hated it so much. And with that speech teacher, I told her that I was going to be a scientist and that this was irrelevant and I would never be standing in front of people talking, and it was something I didn't need to know. And I've looked back many times since then and regretted what I said to her, and I realized the value of that, and knowing that where you end up later in life is not always where you expect to be. And I've talked with donors, I've stood up in front of sponsors and people at program events and share that same story, that I had no expectations, or I had no idea that I would be standing in front of a group talking like that. And yeah, my success, I can tie back to that class that I had with that speech teacher.
Yeah. So back to Flight1 itself a little bit. Why did you choose to start it, or start it?
So when you were in kindergarten, doctors diagnosed me with cancer. The doctors ended up being wrong. It took them about 6 months and I was fine. But during that 6-month period of time, I was thinking about what I wanted to do for you and your brother if I wasn't going to be around, if I was going to be dead by the time you were in 2nd grade. And I wanted to compress fatherhood into the time that I had left. And what was important to me when I was a kid was having the confidence that I gained by learning how to fly. Like I said, I wasn't a good student, didn't do well. Aspect with flying, that was something I had confidence in, and I could look out the airplane and I could literally look down at the high school and see people running around on the football field, and I had a sense of importance. Even though I wasn't down there with them, I could do something cool. And so I wanted to be able to instill that confidence in you guys if I wasn't going to be around. And then when the doctor said I was fine and I could return to life as normal, my friend, my high school friend, Mikey, who you know, his daughter had leukemia. And I knew how hard that 6-month period of time was for me. And knowing that she had 2.5 years of chemo treatment to go through, I knew that it on her. And so that's when I started to shift, and I wanted to help build confidence in her and give her the chance to go out and fly and have her fly around for a day. Really where the idea came from was giving kids that opportunity to rebuild some confidence.
Awesome. So with the creation of Flight1 or your own nonprofit, what were some of the difficulties or challenges that you faced, and how did you end up overcoming those?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 common obstacles in creating something, creating movement. One is credibility of the program. It's a huge risk to have kids go into this brand new program. It hasn't been around, sticking kids in the airplane, pilot in command with them flying the plane. It sounds like there's a lot of risk there. So having that credibility of a trustworthy organization. But the way that I overcame that was just time and trust in working with organizations, and just the slow, persistent growth. The other area that's common is with expertise. I didn't know how to run a nonprofit. I didn't have the legal background or the medical background. And so that expertise was from just working with people, coming up with a crazy idea and just meeting with people and talking to people, and find a few other followers that really saw the value in that and being persistent about that.
Very good. So for some of the students or even faculty that are interested in starting their own company or nonprofit, what are some of the ways that they can get a jump start on that or start working towards their goals?
Yeah, so I think a nonprofit or a company is maybe the final steps. And I think a better question might be is to back up and to say one should find their purpose and their joy in doing things that they already do. I think if it's like you, if it's playing music, it's bringing joy to other people and having a purpose, or helping out kids at a summer camp and finding the value in what you do. I think that that's really the first step. And after that, it's just a matter of taking the next step and what that you can do to continue to go down that path of serving others and having purpose in life. And I think before I talk any more on that, if you could share the video, I think this might be a good break point. We can discuss it afterwards, but it talks about a movement and what it means to be a leader. And I think this video is a good introduction to that.
Sure, I think you need to share your screen.
Oh, let's see. Let that happen. All right. Is that good?
Yep, and so if you want to hit play on your end.
All right. Are you able to hear it?
No, but we can see the captions.
Oh, that's so good.
Maybe if you, I'm not sure if it's because of your headphones.
Well, you know what? I can actually talk through that if that's all right. We can look at the caption. We'll just take a few minutes. So this guy, he can be seen as a leader, and he's dancing around acting crazy. And if you have a crazy idea, that's one of the things is you shouldn't worry about what other people think. If it's a good idea, like starting Flight1 or something else, you do that. And you can't do everything yourself. You need to have some people with an expertise, whether it's lawyers or doctors or community network people. And you find somebody like this guy that's willing to stand up and say, hey, your idea is a good one. I want to follow behind you and make this idea work. And then the leader has to acknowledge the other person and to say that they're equal and to say that they're both in it together, starting a movement. And after a couple people start talking about it, coming up with this movement, then a third person joins. And this really is what Flight1 was like, and this is what any nonprofit or any good idea is like. You just come up with an idea and you keep dancing, keep doing your thing, and a few people will start to follow you. After that, this is kind of where I was at with Flight1, is a few more volunteers started helping out. We had 5 or 10 people, and then it ended up being 20. I think right now we have about 30 people helping out. But then after a while, the leader becomes irrelevant. The guy who started dancing is completely gone. You can't see him anymore. And it's really about the idea of helping other people. And when you have a movement, the idea of getting airplanes, building confidence in kids, and reestablishing confidence that they lost, then when these people see the value in that, they rush towards it, and it becomes this huge movement, something bigger than I am, something bigger than the original founders of the organization. And that's really the cause is like, is it not about one person, but it's about building a movement. And once you gain that momentum, then people want to rush in and be a part of that. So that's it for the video. Yeah, you can stop sharing that if you'd like.
So you talked a little bit about a volunteer, I think, in that when you were talking about the staff. So what are some ways that students and staff can get involved with Flight1 or other nonprofits around the city to get, oh, was I not live when I asked that? Oh, okay. What are some ways that students and staff can get involved with Flight1 or other nonprofits to help volunteer with them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is understanding what really brings you joy. Where do you find your purpose, and what do you want to do? Whether it's helping animals, whether it's helping children, whether it's helping Flight1, helping kids fly planes. And I think all nonprofits, most nonprofits, welcome volunteers. They want to have volunteers help out. The challenge is knowing how those volunteers can help, because everyone has a different way that can contribute, whether it's financially or whether it's time or whether it's something done virtually or on site. So I think what's helpful is to know how you can help and what you can do. For Flight1, it's difficult when somebody says, hey, I want to help. When somebody says, hey, I have a time on Saturday afternoons where I want to help out and I can interact with kids, then that's something specific. Or if somebody else likes to do crafts and to say, hey, I like doing crafts, I like to make birthday cards to send out to kids, that's helpful too, because it helps tailor that person's interests with the needs of the organization. or even with dogs. If you like knitting dog sweaters, that might be something that you can then share with the Humane Society. So it's something specific you can do. So I think it really is up to the individual person, them understanding how they want to contribute and then sharing those specific interests that they have with that group.
Cool. Before we open it up to the Q&A, I believe that you were still sharing your screen.
All right. Let me shut that off if I can.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So if there's any questions from the viewers, feel free to put them in chat or the Q&A section. Yeah.
You've got a couple questions, Bailey. Can you see
Yeah,
them?
I see those now. The first one, what was one of the experiences you had during Flight 1? Was there any time that really like changed you?
Yeah, so there was this girl, and I think you know her. Her name's Grace. She was 5 years old when she started the program, and her father passed away, and her father was a pilot, and so she wanted to be like her dad. So it was very transformational for her to be able to get into the flight simulator and say, hey, look, I'm just like dad, and getting to fly the plane like him. But later on, when she was flying, she was probably 8 years old at the time, and she had already flown a couple times and was confident. And she wanted to take her babysitters flying. So she was there, and her babysitters were 15 and 16 years old, and they were nervous. And this little 8-year-old girl said, don't worry, I know how to fly this plane, and walked out to the plane and hopped in. And to see the confidence in her abilities to do that, it's still to this day, I still know her, and how she sees herself, and the confidence that she has, that as a 8-year-old still was more confident in her 15, 16-year-old babysitter.
We have a few more. Can you speak a little bit on bravery? Why was it important for you to voice your ideas, and what advice would you give to others who have less confidence, who are afraid of vulnerability and sharing their own ideas with people?
Yeah, so bravery and confidence, it's very similar. The challenge is that nobody is confident in everything that they do. Nobody can be brave in everything you can do. You can be in school and be confident, and then outside of school lose that confidence. So it's having successes in the areas where you do, and feeling good about yourself in those areas, and then slowly over time just trying to expand that circle of confidence. And just like this with the kids, they don't have confidence about their day-to-day lives. If they're going from one doctor's appointment to the next and kind of feeling like they're being pushed around. But if every once in a while they have a day where they feel that they have complete control, they can fly anywhere, they can do things that other people can't, then that kind of trickles over to say, what else can I do that other people can't? And that it takes time, but it's something where you build off the strength that you have.
What are some of the ways that Flight 1 has expanded over the last few years?
Yeah, so it started out with just flying with the kids over a period of years, but especially with COVID, we've had some drastic changes now. And one of the ways is with the pilots that we work with UPS and Republic. Those pilots know how difficult it is to fly a plane, and they recognize the accomplishments of these kids who can fly. So they've started writing letters of encouragement, especially during the time of COVID and kids can't fly as much. And so that's a different way that these kids have confidence, is not just through their own accomplishments, but by having professional pilots that are flying all over the country send them personalized letters recognizing them for what they've done. It's something that helps those kids too.
We have a few more here, and then we can close off the meeting, I think. How did you start flying airplanes to begin with, and what are some ways that students could do that if they were interested in it?
Yeah, so I was lucky. My dad, Bailey's grandpa, is a pilot, so we both have experience flying. And he flew for Northwest Airlines, and it was a hard job. He was always gone, and he didn't want me doing the same thing. So he promised he would teach me how to fly as long as I didn't become a professional airline pilot. And so that's what I did. I got my license, didn't pursue that career. Oh, and then to follow up on that, the way you can fly is you can go to pretty much any small airport, and there's flight instructors there, and anyone, even at the age of 15, you can learn how to fly a plane and solo plane by yourself.
So we have a kind of a broader one, but you can do this physically or emotionally. But what was your scariest experience, both flying and running a nonprofit?
So there was a time. there was a time where I was flying a plane and the engine started rattling a little, and that was a little worrisome for me. But even then, there's so many redundant processes set up in an airplane that it's very difficult for any airplane to fail. And even if it does fail, there's always, you'd be surprised how many airports there are around. Within every 15, 20 miles, there's probably a landing strip somewhere. So even though that one time I landed because the engine was starting to shake a little bit, it was still entirely safe. And that's probably the scariest time flying. As far as the nonprofit, I think maybe one of the scariest times for me was at the very beginning, with reference with that dancing guy. When I was up dancing by myself saying, I want to start this, this is a crazy idea, I want to get this going, had a few people join in and want to support it. There was that time where I had to sign my name on the line for registering a nonprofit. And at that point, it meant that it was going to actually be something. And it wasn't just an idea. And for me, it wasn't the idea of starting the nonprofit. It was the idea that once I sign that, it's real. And if it fails, then it's going to be a failure on me. It's something that I've brought into the world. It existed and then it failed. And so that was hard for me it was scary for me to sign something saying I'm bringing this officially into the world, and there's going to be a lot of risk put into this.
I think we have time for two more. So how do you hope to expand Flight1 in the upcoming years?
Yeah, so the way that it's built is scalable. So right now it's in Indianapolis, but we could easily run it in other cities. So I think just whenever we decide to continue to grow, we can move to other cities. And Cincinnati might be one of the logical cities we can move to.
So one of these questions says that there are laws that prohibit some individuals with certain diagnoses from getting their pilot's license. Does this ever cause a problem for your nonprofit with the children flying the planes?
Yeah, there are some restrictions on getting the pilot's license, but the program is really more based around building confidence. So even though they might not meet criteria for gaining their license, they can still be the pilot in command. They can still be in charge of the plane. And as long as their doctor gives approval that it won't affect their health, they can do that. Awesome. So I have a question too, if that's all right. You can ask, or if I can ask, what was it like to grow up in a house where we had a nonprofit? It took up a lot of our time.
There were definitely times where I was a little annoyed about it, because I would come down to dinner or whatever it might be, and like I was expecting to talk about like a TV show or what was going on with school, and then all that you would talk about was the nonprofit. But I was also like 12 at the time, and didn't completely understand what was happening. But with that, it was also really cool and interesting to know that my dad was going out of his way to help people that were less fortunate. And there were times that I went to the airports with him and met the families. And one of the times the families didn't show up for some reason, and I got to fly a plane. So that was cool. I mean, there are definitely ups and downs, but I think the ups outweigh the downs for sure. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we're gonna end it there. So Have a good rest of your day, everyone. All right. What do I do now?